Looking to improve your life, brush up on your personal growth techniques? You are in the right place. Welcome to Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap.
And welcome back, everybody. This is Kevin Dunlap with Life's Little Lessons, and I have a special guest today. This is a gentleman that this is our first time we've actually seen each other. However, we've talked a few times on the phone, and he is actually a person that came to us from a previous guest on our show, a lady by the name of Galina Lapina, which I think she's got the most followings so far on the show. So this is going to be great for Paul as well. But Paul he lives down in Miami, Florida, and his name is Paul Sokolski, if hopefully I'm saying that right. And his company that he has created is called Global Coaching Leadership, and he is known as a transformational specialist. So I'm going to be so excited to hear more about what he has to say here today. And so, Paul, welcome to the show today.
Kevin, thank you so much. You didn't kill it too bad. You were real good though. Sokolski, but real close. But great effort though. I appreciate it.
Well, I was trying to sound it out like.
Well, you did a lot better than most, so you're all good, man. And thank you for inviting me today on the show. I'm real excited to be here today to share with your guests about my journey.
And that's actually what I want to actually just get started with is about your journey. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what is it that you do and why is it that you do that?
So again, my name is Paul Sokolski. I have created a Redesign Your Inner Space where I actually help people break down their inner walls of resistance so that they can truly live a life of their dreams and desires and aspirations. And really kicked off around the story of my life. I now today live on an island here in Miami, Florida called Key Biscayne. Some people who are from this area would know of the island. Most people don't know if they're not from around here. It's an island kind of disconnected from the mainland of Miami. You don't need a boat to get here, but there's a couple of bridges. I landed on this spot, and how I got here really encompasses my story from the very beginning of my entrepreneurial experience, which was really at the age of 13, but then through a full business at the age of 19. But all of that led me to where I am today on this island living in paradise, which was always a dream for me. And that's kind of how my story started. And I didn't quite understand how we manifested, how we brought things into our space. I was really full of a lot of, I guess they would say, piss and vinegar at a very young age. I started my decoration company. I have three companies. I have a decoration company, Designs of the Future. I have a restoration company, and now I have my performance catalyst business, which is where I am a transformational specialist in helping people to break through their conditions, their habits that stop them from getting to where they want to go. I just started this. I knew at a very young age that I wanted to have my own business. Actually, at the age of 13, I put this neighborhood carnival on for a telethon for Jerry Lewis. It was just, I just went and got all this stuff, and I put together these tables and I put these flyers out in the neighborhood, and all these people showed up. It was incredible. Like, it was a lot of people. And I remember collecting all this money and then my parents taking me to actually, drop the money. You'd actually go on TV and you drop the money into this big bin. And it was so rewarding, first to give back, but then to realize, wow, this is something that I created, an idea that I had, and unfolded, and then the way it made me feel was incredible. Now, at 13, you don't really have a lot of direction, but there was something brewing at that point in my life of me that then, jumping ahead, manifested into knowing at the age of 19 that college wasn't for me. I wasn't a dropout in high school, but I wasn't really good for sitting in classrooms and listening to theory. I was very ADD. I was all over the place, like needing to do many things, and that was going out and getting into the business world. So that's exactly what I did at the age of 19. I started my company, Designs of the Future, which is a full service decoration company. I really took off with this business, pretty much working 7 days a week, running myself almost to the ground after about a decade. in between all that, I had a lot of growth, a lot of success, a lot of learning experiences, which we'll talk about today. And basically, it came to a point where I was in my second failed marriage, and I was in a process where I just, I didn't have any children, and I knew that something in my life had to change, but I didn't quite know what that looked like yet. So I had the opportunity to work with somebody out here in Miami, and it turned out to be that I manifested this project, and I wound up working personally for Mr. Trump, for Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. So I worked with very super high-end entrepreneurs, probably some of the richest people in the world in the Middle East, sheiks in the Middle East. And so I moved out to Miami in this process of going back and forth from New York to Miami to do this project. And I realized, wow, this is a beautiful place. And I moved out here. And that's kind of really where my entire life took a shift for the better. I kind of hit the ground first in a realization that this can't keep happening to me. There was this point of victimization. I think we've all been there in our lives, where I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. And one day I came to this realization that this can't be all there is. And I think a lot of people say that, but for me, it was a true statement, a feeling, not just something I said, but something I felt deep within. And that's where I connected with a friend who had just come back from a trip from India. And we started talking, and she told me about this experience that she had, and I wound up going to India. And it was so funny because, here I'm coming from New York. I lived in upstate New York a good part of my life before I moved here. So, we're fast paced. Everything's go, 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 work. And then coming out to Miami, it's like, it's like being in the Caribbean. It's like the tropics. Everything is slower paced, everything's cool, tranquilo. And so I think that's the place I needed to be, to stop for a moment, to hear the voice within me that was truly calling in this space that I was in India. And it was the first time in my life that I really was able to go deep within myself and learn one of the most valuable lessons that I teach people today in their business. And it may not sound like something that would be a business tool, but I realized at that point how valuable this would be for the rest of my life. And that tool was that it was the process of learning to love myself, to fall in love with me. But then what came out of that was the second gift, the second nugget, which was that it wasn't what I was doing in my life. Because you see, I created all this success. I'd worked for, billionaires, people around the world. I was traveling internationally with my company. And I had this great external paradise that most people saw, but my inner space was incongruent with what was going on externally. And what I realized was it wasn't what I was doing in my businesses. It wasn't what I was doing in my relationships. It's who I became as an individual, who I became as a man, that changed my life forever. And that realization happened in this retreat that I was at the Oneness University in India back 8 years ago. And I met a good friend of mine there who was just starting his coaching practice, and kind of just jumped into his room one day. I became an investor in his company, and then he invited me to come out to one of his events. And I knew all along that I wanted to give back, but I didn't really quite know what that looked like. So I stepped into this event. I'd never been to an event before, never really invested in myself. Now, I probably invested close to $500,000 into my knowledge through, decorative art and design and all these things that I'd done for my business. But personally for myself, I'd never really invested like I was looking at people doing in this room. And I'll never forget sitting there, and it was like this wave of energy came through me, like this voice that was screaming at me, like, this is your calling. Like, I realized in that room what my gift and mission was in giving back to people. And that's really where Redesign Your Inner Space was created and birthed. It actually started out as the Breakthrough Attraction Academy. That was my first branding program. But then I realized through that, my background in interior design and in decoration, I realized that I had transformed this, going from interior designing people's homes to now moving into the space of interior designing people's hearts. And it was this great transformation, which you get in someone's home where they walk in and they see this huge transformation. And it's the same thing when people come out and spend a day here in Paradise doing their VIP day with me, private clients, and they have this incredible transformation from redesigning their inner space. So this opened up an incredible space for me. And I stepped in, I invested pretty big and worked with some people who were really doing big things out there, and started getting on some big stages, started speaking, and then started having my own live events, and now actually a retreat coming up in a couple of weeks here in Paradise. And it opened up this space where I fell into a space and a calling that is so congruent from within myself. And there's just something that I don't think anybody has to ever tell you. There's something that you just know. There's a knowingness within you when you connect with that. Sometimes people spend their whole life looking for their calling or their passion or their purpose. And this was very evident and clear to me when I stepped into the space, and I started attracting professional athletes that I was coaching, entrepreneurs, and it just became this incredible new awakening experience for me that I was able to then give back in a greater way. And that's what led me to actually being on this call with you today. This is opening up myself to this space and to these people. And I'm so grateful, and I so appreciate where I am today, and sharing this message with the world.
And so how did you make the decision, or what was it at that event that was the catalyst to cause this change in your life to go from working in the outer world, now you're working in the inner world?
Well, I realized that I was everything I was doing, was coming from this negativity, this victimization from within myself. So it was kind of like, my platform from within myself was creating a lot of havoc in my external world. I didn't quite get that. I didn't realize that, because for me, I just felt I lived in a world of external experiences. And yes, we do live in a world of external experiences, but if you study universal law, there's cause and effect. Mm-hmm. So I was causing within myself through this negativity, through fear, through these a lot of unworthiness and rejection, and a lot of guilt and betrayal to myself, which I perceived through my experiences. It wasn't that people actually did that, but it was a perception of mine. And being able to be in this silence for over 2 weeks, because they had you go in a state of silence. I'm not saying that people have to go to India to find their calling, but for me, this is where it was. And it was in this space, it was in this new conversation and this new perception of there was no religion. Not that I have anything against structured religion. I don't follow that anymore. I grew up Catholic, but there was many parts to me within myself that were creating my external space. Mm-hmm. And it was that realization, going back within myself and connecting to that the best next version of me within myself. That was that eye-opening experience internally. And then what was happening was the shift externally. So I understood and I realized the congruency of within myself to then being congruent externally. And that's really where most people, even at a high level that I've worked with, people who've sold their company for $4 billion and they're so unhappy in their life. And there's a lot of incongruency, from within themselves and what they truly want. And externally, they're not living it. So there's this disconnect between these two parts. And that's what it was for me. There was a disconnect between my internal space. There was these walls of resistance that I was holding back from, didn't quite understand or know how to do that. I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught that at a young age. I wasn't taught to sit down and go within yourself. And I'd be like, if you told me this 10 years ago, I'd be like, you're freaking crazy. Like, I got to make money. I got to sustain my company. I got 25 employees working for me. I got to feed these people. I was on a whole different plane. So it was silence and a moment for myself to be able to listen to that voice that's within all of us. And again, I'm not claiming that everybody has to go to India, but there was a point in time when you find that, and that was the catapult for me, and the realization. to answer your question.
And like yourself, I did not grow up with all of these enlightened things. It was much later in my life. It was actually in February. Was it February? March 2010. When I was like yourself, I was going through an event, a personal growth event, and it started in February, but it was the March one that really got to me. Where one of the things that I really learned about myself was, about the inner self. Because people think just because you make a lot of money, you run successful businesses, that you're automatically happy. And a lot of times, most of those people are not happy because they put everything on the external instead of on the internal. But now once I realized about my internal, my entire shift, my entire view of life and everything else had changed. So I'm glad that you're sharing that for somebody that has, let's just call it native to, is what a lot of other people are striving to do. And if you're not working on your inner self, then your external self becomes almost useless, in my opinion.
Yeah, you see, most people, Kevin, and that's so true. Most people want to make a lot of money, like they want to make $1 million, but they don't. It's not about the money. It's the way the money is going to make them feel. Right. They don't really know why they even want it. They have no clue. And that's something I help people get clear with. But we're actually finishing a project right now we're in a $50 million home right now. $50 million home. And this gentleman he's miserable. And and a lot of my decoration design clients become actual coaching clients. Okay. And it's interesting how that happens. And anyways, it's a good point. Like money doesn't bring you happiness, and money is great. Money buys you freedom to be able to spend more time with your family, travel the world, get your message out to the world, whatever that looks like. The more freedom and more time. But if you don't know why you want it, if you're not clear about what that is, and if you think that just making $1 million is going to make you happy, it's far from that. And I think a lot of people, including myself, just speaking of my own experiences, I've been there many times, and I've had the cars, I've had the homes, I've done all of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't have any regrets, and I love that. I love luxury and all those things, but it's secondary from what's within yourself. It's secondary from creating this inner space for yourself that doesn't need those things, that they're secondary to who you are. Because when those become your priority and you lose them, it's a big fall for most people. And that's where they get lost. It's the same thing in relationships. When you learn to love yourself, when you learn to be in love with you, somebody comes into your life that is an example of that. They match that, they mirror that. It's not that you need them, you want them in their life, and you're both on this trajectory together. And it's not that it's a need, but it's a want. And when you love yourself, it's a completely different experience in this relationship. You're not looking for somebody to fill the void that's missing within yourself. And it's the same thing in business. How you do anything is how you do everything. And that's really, to tie this all together, to put it all in a beautiful little box, is really this was the biggest key, the biggest nugget, the biggest transformation breakthrough, you want to call it, in my experience, was this understanding of redesigning my inner space and what that looked like moving forward in my relationships, in my business, in my spirituality, in my finances. It affected everything.
I was about to ask you that. It says when you, I don't know which level of success that you were at when you decided to work on your inner self. Would it be accurate to say that when you started working on your inner self, started, like you said, to love yourself, that the other areas of your life will fall in place more easily? It would.
Yes, they do. I think, it's very interesting. I believe that we can have it all. And I believe that we call it 4 cores of our life. So you have relationships, spirituality, you have finances, right? And it's everything is all the cores of your life is basically, they're all connected. So how you do anything is how you do everything. And it affects every part of it. So you may be striving like me. I was awesome in business, but then I lacked in relationships, and I also was lacking in spirituality because I didn't quite understand it. So I was able to figure out and create a way to tie all that in together as a core to affect every core of my life. And when you do that, and when you're congruent within yourself, these other areas of spirituality, of your finances, of your relationships, of loving yourself, all these tie in together, and it creates this core that's very sustainable if you're willing to continue doing the work, because this is a lifelong process. Mm-hmm. We spent a good part of our lives, at least I did, building this paradigm that wasn't true, that wasn't giving me results. And I practiced it enough that it became habit. So it took a while to break that. And there are times when I go back into those states, we all do. Mm-hmm. There will be times in the future that I will, because we're human beings and there's triggers there to teach us something. I believe that. But it's how quickly I can move out of those today versus where I was before. I mean, literally in a matter of minutes, sometimes even seconds, I can move myself out of that space because I've been able to practice. And it's a continuation of that, and a continuation of the lessons and the training on a consistent basis of doing the rituals that I do in my life that really help me to create the momentum and the sustainability of what's going on in my life.
Well, and that's a good way that you said that, because you're now aware. When you become aware that you're in that bad, let's just call it the bad space, now you can say, okay, I could consciously stay in this one, or I can actually, using the tools and techniques that you've talked about, you can actually make those changes and actually do something different with yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, consistency is everything. And the more that we do it, so, even inconsistency is consistency, I mean, so if you're inconsistent in practicing the things that take you out of a state that's not serving you, well, then you'll continue to stay in that state, because we continually say, I hate it when I'm feeling like this. I hate it when I'm always here. I look at my company checkbook and it's always in the negative. I never get any clients, or that, so when you're continually in that frustration, you continually attract vibrationally through frequency. I believe that we are transmitters and receivers. We're this walking antenna, and we transmit this frequency of energy, and then we receive back light through other people. Mm-hmm. So when people get this, and when they understand that everything's, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I know a lot of people that I've worked with continually say in the beginning, yeah, I get it. I know everything starts with me. I know that my thoughts are powerful, but I'm like, you don't know. Yeah. Because they see where they are in their life. So they're saying it. This is where the incongruency part comes in, right? Mm-hmm. They're saying, yeah, I get it. But then their external experiences show that they don't. So very important to be consistent on rituals that work for you. One of my mentors, Tony Robbins, he still does rituals after 40 some years. He still does rituals. I had the honor to work with him in his home for 8 months. I just finished a project for him back in November of last year. We worked all last year with him in his home, in his house in West Palm Beach. And, I saw all the things he has in his movie. I saw his pool, like he goes from his spa into his cold pool, into his cryo, he's got salt therapy, he's got cryotherapy, all these rituals, all these things that keep him at his peak performance. Okay. And I don't know that people really understand the power of that. If one person is getting success for that, anybody can do it. It's a matter of consistency. So rituals and consistency have really been a big player in my life, and helping me to break through these states when I kind of, you want to call it, fall off the wagon, or things come into my space that get triggered by something. And it's just a means for me to very quickly change state and focus on what I'm going after.
When you said that, the fact that Tony Robbins could do it, now it's proven that it can be done, that therefore you could do it, or your clients could do it, or whatever could do it. And that actually reminded me, I don't know how many years ago, when they was said, like, somebody, you could not beat the 4-minute mile. And then once the first person did it, then it's like, okay, well, it can be happening. And then like it was could be consistently beaten by a bunch of other people. But before that, they were saying, if you do a 4-minute mile, your heart would beat so fast that it would actually explode. So therefore, it was virtually impossible. But the thing is, now once you know that it's possible, because either you've done it or somebody else has done it, then that just sets, to me, the groundwork for saying, okay, now what can I do to achieve that same result?
Yeah, an entrepreneur's mind, a true entrepreneur's mind works like this. when they hear that they can't, the entrepreneur mind says, how can I? If you can't afford that, it's either this or that. No, how can I afford to do both? Mm-hmm. When you learn that you have the power and the ability, which is what I've created in my space today, to build a business where it can be fun, where I actually work on the beach with people on the beach in nature, bringing people out on a kayak, having people in front of me in a beach chair, and we are breaking down those inner walls of resistance and creating, like, redesigning an inner space, bringing them back in healing times of their lives that they've held on to, stories of the past that no longer serve them, and creating this new space for them to then build out their vision. That's the next part of what we do. We help them build out the vision, whether it's their business, whether it's their personal life. And, and this is something that I've been able to create in my life. And rituals are something that we actually custom blend for people wherever they are. So I have many different rituals that I've learned and that I've used. And it's not just, what I've spoke of Tony, but because he's been in this, he is the guy in this personal development space, but even from my own experiences in my own life, I mean, I know that they work because I'm living proof of that. It's just a huge part of my life and in my success.
Okay. Well, talk about your successes. Because I know you were talking about when you were 19 years old, you were starting your first business I would assume that was as the interior designer. Is that what you said? I
actually started as a painting contractor. I was actually going around and just literally driving around to job sites, construction sites, introducing myself and meeting people, and started getting work that way. That's how I first started.
Well, let's go down that road a little bit, because I'd like to learn about some of your early successes in your business, and in particular, start with your first business, your interior design business. Could you tell me and the audience here a little bit about some of your early successes in that arena?
I'd love to. Anybody who's listening to this right now, who's in the process of getting ready to start a business or going through the process of starting a business, if you can write this one thing down, I can guarantee you, and I don't guarantee a lot of things, but I can guarantee you this: if you do this one thing, it will sustain your business for a lifetime. And that is a guarantee. And what that one thing is building relationships with people. There is still the connection between one-on-one with somebody and giving them that time to listen to them, to truly, gain whatever it is that they're looking for, whether that's in a coaching practice, whether that's in, a service business, whatever that is building that relationship with the individual. Because, a lot now is done through automation. I know in the personal development space, I learned, there's not a lot of contact. There's a lot of texting. There's a lot of, calls, not even calls, more texting even. So building a relationship with people was the first thing I learned. Like I said, I would drive around and I would go meet people on the projects and introduce myself. And that's really how it was, word of mouth. It was people, they understood my energy. They had a chance to meet me. And that really opened up a huge door for me. And so that was a great way to start. But then I started realizing that I was getting a lot more work that I could handle. And so the next part of my business and growth was, success in hiring people. So I just grabbed a bunch of people. I was hiring people here and there. And then I came to another great realization. Here's a second nugget. Invest in quality people. You're not going to save money trying to cheap out on hiring help, okay? Unless it's somebody running errands for you, and as I have 2 assistants, that's a different story, okay? But hire good help because it reflects you. At the end of the day, it reflects you. So that was step 2, like learning how the importance of that. And I really was able to, to wear all the hats in my business, which I don't recommend that you do forever, but I recommend that you do it enough that you have enough experience to understand how the mechanics of everything works, so that you are still driving the ship and you know what's going on. So my father is a CPA, he specializes in tax. So even though I had him, I was still able to learn a lot around the accounting part of my business and, hiring, the HR, insurances, having the proper insurance. Another great nugget is having a business line of credit. like that saved my butt in so many ways, because, sometimes we were out $100,000 in payables. And, I had to pay my help. I had to pay my people. And so I was able to borrow against a line of credit. That was very helpful for me. So these are things that I learned. And after the process of learning all these things, I then was able to start hiring and implementing and delegating these things to other people. So at one point I had, salespeople in my office. I had, actually one, and I had 2 secretaries, 25 employees working for me. And I was able to build this vehicle and kind of continue to step back and just truly run the business. Okay. And that took some time and practice, but I think it's really important that you learn, the steps of the process first, so that when you hand it over to somebody, you're aware of what's going on, rather than relying on somebody that may not know what they're doing, and then something happens. It could be a very costly mistake.
And I fully agree with you with that, because with anybody starting a new business, they do need to understand how, let's say, all the ins and outs of the business, even though they may not be doing it, but have at least some kind of awareness. That way, when somebody else comes in that you're going to hire to replace them with, how much time it's going to take. What's involved in that, rather than just guessing. Like, for an example, if somebody was wanting to build a website for me, I know enough about WordPress to be able to do that, but I may not want to do all that work. But if I know nothing about it whatsoever, then you never know if you're going to be getting good, as you say, good quality work, or getting what you actually want, or if the purpose is even capable or not. So,
yeah, it was a great, valuable lesson. And I think another thing that a lot of people I run into, especially ones that I coach now, they don't pay attention to Uncle Sam, especially if they come from a blue collar job and, they've always collected a paycheck, and now they're getting paid by their clients. You need to think about, setting money aside. And a lot of businesses fail after their first or second year, because even though their first year could be a loss, the second year they've made money and they haven't allocated their taxes to put away for that. And, you're making couple $100,000 a year and you don't have a lot of write-offs. Even with that, you're talking about a $50,000, $60,000 tax bill, and that can really break a lot of people. So there's many things that I learned to implement. There's many processes kind of broke down into modules and trainings that I give to people that work with me today, that are simplistic things, at least to me, but very big aha moments in my process and learning stages of growing my businesses. And the other part of it was also, is just investing in your future. So, having, whether that be you invest in some real estate, now you can get into crypto and Bitcoin and, whatever it looks like for you, but knowing that being that you're self-employed, I don't like to use the word savings, because money isn't to save. Money is to circulate. So if you were to set money on the table, $1,000, and walk away and come back a year later, it's there. It doesn't actually become something until you circulate it. So I believe that investing into your company, investing into your business, investing into your mind, these are all big things that can really give you a great ROI in that. And I think most people always want to know, what's the ROI? Well, what's the ROI if I invest into this, into this stock, or if I invest into crypto, or if I invest into Bitcoin? And my thing is, let's back it up. Let's talk about what's your COI, what's your cost of inaction if you don't do something. Because one day you wake up and 20 years have gone by, or 10 years have gone by, and you're like, wow, where did all this time go? And you're looking at your business, and businesses will have their ups and downs. They are sustainable, but you will go through many highs and lows. It's inevitable. Don't think for 1 minute that you're going to build a business and it's going to continually always make money. I mean, there are going to be years when you don't, and there's going to be years when you do. And there's a way to plan specifically for those times. And I'm not talking about hoarding, but there are specific things to do. And investing is one of those. So that's another key in building my companies, was investing in certain things that, and that's why I opened up a multitude of companies, because I was doing not just decoration, but then, a restoration. And it was always another avenue for me. There's always another branch for me to feed off of. Plus I was super ADD and I was a multitasker. So it was part of my personality, but nonetheless, it really helped me through times when one business was slower, the other business had picked up. And it was a great mirror for both to work together.
And I would actually segue to what you were just saying, that there is not only do you want to invest in your company and those things as well, but also have maybe even a separate account where you can invest in yourself, where you take educational courses, take personal development courses, hiring a coach, doing whatever to, because like you were just saying, if you're investing all on your company, not investing any on yourself, now you're working on the external world instead of the internal world. So there has to be a balance on both of those for investments. In my opinion.
Yeah, totally. Another great nugget I want to share is taking off from what you just said. Very important. Every check that comes through my door, my assistant knows immediately. The very first thing, 10% goes into my wealth account. Every single check. I put money into my fund account. I put money into my tax account. So what's left in my company account is really a net number. Okay. So a lot of people, they work off of gross, they get in $100,000 and now I made all this money, but now you're subtracting out your help, all your expenses, and then they're left with 50 and they go out and they spend 30 or 40 and then they got a tax bill of $15,000 or $20,000 and they're in a negative by 15. So it's setting up separate accounts and investing, like you say, in yourself. That's one big key thing that I do. Again, many things to talk about, only a little bit of time here in the show today, but really talking about the important things. And you're right, yes, also investing in yourself and in your mind. And we'll get into a little bit more of that on some of the questions you might have a little bit later. I don't want to break your rhythm here, but yeah, I'll share some of those things too as well.
Okay. And what would you say were some of your more recent successes that you've had in your either your coaching businesses or your other businesses?
Well, the Manifesting Tony Robbins House was a huge success for me. I continue to attract high frequency, high level people in my life from the way I've shown up, who I've become. And that's really been a big key for me. So all the other things aside, which are secondary, are important, but it's a continual practice in my success. I believe a lot of people, their success is really limited to the degree of what they feel they can achieve, and some people think, well, when I make $1 million, I'll be successful. When I get this account or that account, I'll be successful. When I, pay off my kids' college or pay off my home or all these things. But for me, success is really what's within myself, who I am as an individual and how I show up, because everything comes from there. So I want to lead off with that. Like that for me is my biggest success continually, as an inner piece. Externally, I have manifested, I got a couple speaking gigs coming up. One, I've been asked to speak out in Australia toward the end of the year, also in the UK. So I'm real excited about that. And I think I mentioned earlier, I have a retreat coming up March 17th and 18th here in Key Biscayne, Florida, on how to build the most incredible relationship with you. And so I'm really excited about that, and just really being able to take all of this, package all of these things in my last 28 years of business and teach people how to get there in a fraction of the time. And that's what I'm working on today.
Well, that's really noble of you. Thank you very much for doing that. And hopefully your retreat will go extremely well. You make some huge transformationals, not only for yourself, but also for your attendees.
Of course.
And so, well, obviously without any kind of, or actually before we go down there, when you were just getting started, what were some of the fears and stuff that you had to overcome? Because most entrepreneurs have some kind of a fear, either limiting beliefs or some other issue that are coming up. What were some of your early fears, and how did you overcome those?
Well, I remember, I remember very clearly many nights of, it's so crazy. Like, I remember many nights laying in my bed thinking, oh my God, what happens if I lose this account? How am I going to pay my people? How am I going to, I was building, I had many trucks on the road, and, I had an office, and this started off with a company out of my truck, which started building up. So one of my biggest fears was losing everything. And it was so crazy because I had more work than I could handle. I had crews working day and night, 7 days a week. So that was the biggest thing for me. I was fearing that I would lose everything, or that, I would not be able to sustain it. And it was crazy, that mindset, what it drove me into. Another thing was I'm a car guy. So I owned, I think when I was 23 years old, I bought my first Porsche. And every Porsche that I bought, I never really drove, because my fear was that my clients would see me in the car, and they wouldn't use me anymore, because they would think that I was charging too much money. Excuse me. So I would always be in fear of driving my car. And I'll never forget this. I drove to this club. It was called the Ocean Club. And I remember pulling up, and I'm like, I'm going to take the car out. And I remember pulling into the Ocean Club right up to valet. I just ordered this 911 from Florida. Had the turbo rims. It was beautiful. Whale tail, the whole 9 yards. I pull in, and lo and behold, I get out of my Porsche. The valet guy gets in, and I hear, "Hey, no wonder why you charge so much money." And I look up, and there's one of my clients leaning over the railing, and I'm like, "You got to be freaking kidding me, right?" And like a month later, I went out and I sold the car. And so it was a lot of breakthroughs that came through for me, a lot of conditioning that I had to break later in my years. But those were a lot of fears around, losing clients, not being enough. Another fear was charging too much money. Like, I was in fear that I'd be overcharging for my services. And I learned at a later age in my life that, when everything shifted for me, that wasn't the case. I realized my own value and worth, and charging from that space was a completely different field to play in. So those are just a couple of the fears that come to mind for me. Making payroll every week, fearing that, losing help, that one of my key people would leave. And it was just I created a lot of stress and havoc for myself that wasn't needed.
So how did you overcome? Do you still suffer for some of that, or how did you overcome some of those, or do you just not put any energy on it anymore?
Well, what I learned from that was the takeoff from India. And what I learned a very important lesson around faith. Okay. And not the faith in where you pray kneeling down, but the faith between my ears, to know that whatever I call out in my space, I'm in 100% expectation that it's going to show up. There's nothing for me to worry about. It's a matter of letting go and knowing that everything's going to work out. Even if it doesn't work out, it's working out because it wasn't meant to be. Opportunity will always show in misfortune or disguise. So just because you think it's going to go a certain way and it doesn't mean it's over. That could be the next big door opening for you for something grander and larger, whether that's in your business, your relationships, whatever that looks like. So this was a realization that took a lot of practice. I will admit, it wasn't like I just, okay, yeah, great, let me just not focus on it anymore. No, it took a lot of work, a lot of practice, because I spent many years on the other side of that. But let me tell you, it didn't serve me. And each time, it wasn't about changing my belief, because the only way you can change a belief is to actually experience it first. I can tell you all day long, believe this, do this, but until you actually experience it yourself, you don't know. So it was these little progressions of, having these awakenings and these moments of, wow, this really works. And even though it worked, it was super powerful, I would still be like, wait a minute, is that even possible? So there was still like questioning. So it took some building up of muscle, and they became resistant of the story that was no longer serving me. And it became this point where it was this teeter-totter balance back and forth with not serving, not serving. And then all of a sudden I just balanced out, and I realized this baby is on autopilot, man. And I can control all of it with this piece of real estate 6 inches between my ears. It's all coming from here. So if I want to worry, don't be surprised when worry shows up. And if I want to be in complete focus of abundance, don't be surprised when abundance shows up, because worry and abundance are simultaneously there at the same time. One becomes absent when you focus on the other. So, but focus could only happen when I understood the faith behind the focus. Because If you don't have faith in what you're going after, it's really hard to get there. You see, that's back to where the incongruency. Most people want something, but they don't have the faith or belief in it. So they never actually see it. And I tell you, most people, the opportunity will show up where they need to invest some dineros into themselves or their business. And they back off and say, no, it's not a good time right now. I don't have the money, and that could be the very thing that they need to get them to the next level.
Yeah. And because as they always say, so you have to do something different. If you keep doing the same thing, it's just, that's the definition of insanity, is you're not going to get anything different by keep doing the same thing. The only way to grow is by doing something different. And in many cases, like you said, it is taking that investment, the investment of time and money. So.
Yeah. And Kevin, the other thing I want to add too, for entrepreneurs who are just getting started, or even, entrepreneurs who have been in the business for a while, they would probably agree with the statement. One of the other gifts I learned was I associated myself with people who were already doing what it was that I wanted to be doing, that were already at a level that I wanted to be at. And I was modeling these people. I was following what they were doing. At the age of 25, I was the second vice president of an organization called the PDCA. It was the Painting and Decorating Contractors of America. I was one of the youngest board attendees. I served for over 4 years. And I did that to position myself to be around these people that were actually doing what I wanted to do. And then later on in life, hiring mentors to teach me how to get there. And that, take it for whatever it is. People say, oh, that's an inspire conversation. That's a sales conversation. No, sales is not something you do to somebody. Sales is something you do for somebody. And the realization for me was that, if I want to get there, I got two choices. I could spend all the time I did and if somebody offered me what I know today, if somebody offered me 20 years ago to say, hey, look, I got this package deal for X amount of dollars, and I can teach you how to get from where you are to where you want to be in a fraction of the time. Like what took me 30 years or 28 years in business, I can teach you in a fraction of that time. I would be on it like that. So that's a huge lesson for people who are looking to do what they want to do, because a lot of people, it's not sometimes that they don't want to do it, they don't know how. So involving yourself with people that do is the next step to getting to where you want to go, because you're actually, you're not going to believe it yet because you haven't experienced it, but you can actually see someone who's doing what you're doing. And then from there, you have the choice to model them or to hire them to show you what the next step is, or not. Or just say, well, that's not for me. That's a choice. But in any event, mentorship is a great way to expand and catapult your business very quickly if you hire the right person that's congruent with your message and your dream and your desire.
I fully agree with you there. I mean, 100%, because I know I've got a couple of mentors that I work with right now, or a couple of coaches I work with right now. And yes, I mean, I've come a long way just by talking to them. I mean, I just talked to another lady earlier today. I hadn't talked to in a few months, and she's doing some great things. And it's like, I want to start incorporating that into my business now. So it's like, okay, I'm glad I had that conversation earlier today, just because of that, with that one little tidbit of information. Now she's not my coach. She is a coach. She's a master's NLP certified. So, master practitioner. I know I'm just a practitioner. I'm not a master practitioner, but she's gone all the extra steps to learn that. Is like, what can I learn from her? And as you said, just hanging out or associating with other people that have what you want is key. Is very, very, very much key. And that sometimes may require that you let go of people that are not serving you anymore. So. Yeah,
I think that's the hardest thing when that holds a lot of people back. I've seen that in life where it holds people back because generally to do what they want to do, they'll have to do something they've never done before. And that's really scary.
It can be.
It's really scary. And I guarantee you when you cross that line, whatever is waiting for you will be on the other side of that. But you need to pass through that to actually experience, because I don't believe that, my belief is, I'm not asking anybody on this call or in your audience to believe this, but my belief is that, we came into this physical mass signing off on a contract saying we were going to have amnesia. We were going to remember where we came from. And all of these moments of, for me, hitting the ground, and couple failed marriages and going to India. That was my moment to reconnect to something greater, that I signed up for amnesia, and I continually, wake up that part of my mind, and I continually go there for my support, for my desires, for whatever I want. And that's just an important piece to our life. And I think a lot of people get stuck because they don't know how to get there, or they back off, or it may mean that they have to leave a relationship that is holding them down or holding them back, or they may have to, change their zip code, or whatever it is, or they may have to leave their current job to get to where they want to go. And it's really scary. So I'm not saying that you're going to be able to do that without fear, but if you have a strategy and a plan in place to get you there, that's a whole different ballpark. I'm not telling people to just, jump ship and not have a plan, because that doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work. And I see a lot of people in the industry doing that. Like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start the coaching business. And, they were a McDonald's fanatic for 25 years, and they went off of eating McDonald's for 6 months and did green smoothies, and now they're a health coach. And, and now it's like, I'm going to just leave my job and start coaching people on that. And there's no plan. Okay. There's no sustainability. There's no steps. They don't know what to do. And so that's another part. So if you're planning on doing something, being around the people that are doing what you want to do, having a mentor, and having a strategy or strategies to creating the momentum and the steps in place to do what you need to do. A lot of people, they start to build a business. Oh, I got to build a website and I got to get a funnel, and you don't need any of that stuff to start. What you need is the very thing I learned that we talked about earlier. And that's to go out there and build relationships with people. Go out there, have conversations with people, whether it's a coffee conversation, whether you go to an event, and start talking about your passion and your dream and how you can help them. People aren't looking to buy other people's programs. People are looking to get out of pain. And if you can speak to that to people authentically through your own experience in your life, it's a game changer. And the experience to be in front of people and to build these relationships, and to know that it's not just about the money, but it's about giving people results in their lives. When you're clear about this and you can build beautiful relationships with people, work just flows to you effortlessly. Your word of mouth becomes the biggest advertisement for you. I'm not saying Facebook and other platforms aren't good, but I'm just saying, like, start the business out by building relationships, get some money coming in. Cash injection into your business is number one. If you don't have money coming in, you don't have a business. So websites and funnels don't matter, because if you don't have a list that you're mailing to or people coming in, there's nowhere to get there. So build relationships, get out there, meet people, call your friends, call your family, talk to your coworkers, talk to, I don't care if it's people on the street, like whatever it is, just get your message out there and start speaking and building relationships with people. When I worked in the Middle East, I did a project for a sheik in the Middle East in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I decorated this 100,000 square foot palace for a year and a half. It's like royalty. They flew me out there. It was the most incredible experience in my life. And I watched these people do multi-million-dollar deal on a handshake. And they built this relationship for a good year. Dining, dinner, friendships, doing things together before any business was done, before any money was exchanged. They built this relationship. And I believe that that's what this world needs today. I believe that the tech world is super incredible, and I believe that it has opened up grand spaces to reach people so quickly and so fast. But I also believe that nothing will ever change or take out human connection. And if you can build your business on that first and foremost, guaranteed, man, you go to the moon. Guaranteed.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, Paul, we're actually just about to run out of time here. We only got a couple more minutes left. Are there any, or let me ask you this one last question then. Where do you see yourself in the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, I'm already there, man. I'm there. Right, 1 to 2 years is right now. My future's today. So I have, I have a full sold out retreat 3 times a year. I have 2 live events, and I got VIP clients coming in twice a month here, private clients to my island here in Key Biscayne, Florida. and people are getting massive results. And I'm continuing to travel the world and expand my message and speak and give back in a way that's so rewarding to me.
Okay. Well, if somebody out there in the audience wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, if they just want to go to, they can email me at paul@paulsokolski.com. And or they can come. We have a little funnel running right now with a couple of videos up. If they want to opt in, that's just go to paulsokolski.com.
Okay.
And they'll be able to opt in for some free videos. And there's a space there at the end to sign up for a free discovery session. And if they have anything that they want to ask, or get on the phone, or they can also look me up on Facebook under Paul M. Sokolski.
Okay. Well, fantastic. So everybody out there, that's you email him at paulsokolski.com. Hopefully I'm getting it right now.
Yeah, perfect.
His last, and that is spelled PaulSokolski. So that's paulsokolski.com. He's got some free training videos on his website, as well as a free discovery sessions. So, well, Paul, are there any last words that you have that you would like to share with the guests before we say goodbye to everybody?
Just want to say, don't ever give up on your dreams. Go after whatever you want. It's out there. It's for you. And surround yourself with people that can help you to get there quickly. And just out of all of that, through the challenges, through the ups and the downs, remember that is life. It will continually be life. There is no end destination. You will always continue to grow and expand. So live your life, live with love in your heart, and just have fun. Like, don't make it so serious. Like, we're so serious in our business. Like, go out there and have fun. Make fun. Have a blast. Build this thing out. Make a crap ton of money. Have a lot of fun doing it, and enjoy your life.
Well, that's awesome that you say that, because one of my big people that I look up to and I read about and follow is Sir Richard Branson, and he's all about fun. So he built up the whole Virgin Empire from scratch, from nothing. And he's always about enjoying the moments, enjoying the fruits of your labor, and just going out and just enjoying life. Because why work so hard? And then the next thing, like you said earlier, and 20 years later, you're like, you're still building, and, you could lose relationships. Like you said, you had 2 failed marriages, and, you've got to really just enjoy enjoy the moment.
Absolutely.
Well, Paul, I want to say thank you for being on the show today, and I know that this was a phenomenal experience, and I'm so glad to have you here and actually see you face to face, because I know we've talked a couple of times on the phone. And good luck on your retreat that's coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you, and anybody in the audience. If they have questions further, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to answer anything I could for you, and I appreciate the time today and having me on your show.
And it's been my pleasure as well. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit kevinadunlap.com, facebook.com/kevinadunlap.author, and on Twitter @KevinADunlap. We'll catch you on the next episode of Life's Little Lessons.